Notice John chapter 18, verse 38. This is the first time. Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" And when he had said this, he went out again to the Jews and said to them, "I find no fault in him at all." In other words, this man is innocent. Once again in John 19 and verse 4. Pilate then went out again and said to them, "Behold, I am bringing him out to you, that you may know that I find no fault in him." That's twice. Notice John 19 and verse 6. Three's the charm. Therefore, when the chief priests and officers saw him, they cried out saying, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "You take him and crucify him, for I find no fault in him." Did Pilate openly announce that Jesus was innocent of violation of any law of Rome, of the civil power? Yes. But the Jews said, this guy violated the first table of the law. By the way, Jesus had not, but they're accusing him of doing that, and they want to use the civil power of Rome to destroy Jesus because of the convictions of his conscience, because of his religious views. In fact, notice John chapter 19 and verse 7. The Jews answered him, "We have a law." It might not be yours, they're saying to Pilate, but we have a law. And according to our law, he ought to die because he made himself the Son of God. And Pilate says, and what does that have to do with me? Making himself like God, that's the first table of the law. Of course, he doesn't say this, but he says that has to do with you, with the spiritual kingdom, not with me. Show me that he killed somebody, or he committed adultery, or he stole, or he dishonored or trampled upon his parents, or that he's guilty of witnessing falsely against people. Give me one of those violations of civil law, but don't come to me and say that he made himself God, because that has to do with your law. It doesn't have to do with mine. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Now notice John 19 verse 11. Did Pilate and Jesus both recognize that there are two kingdoms? Absolutely. Notice John 19:11. Because Pilate says, "Don't you know that I could release you if I wanted to?" Notice, Jesus answered, "You could have no power at all against me unless it had been given you from above." Why was Pilate ruling in Rome? Who placed him there? God placed him there. Jesus is saying, you wouldn't have any power unless God had placed you there. So did Jesus recognize the legitimacy of the civil power? Yes, he did. Did he recognize the legitimacy also of the religious power? He most certainly did. Now, why did Pilate deliver an innocent man? John 19 and verse 12 tells us the reason. Actually, there are two reasons. Number one, because he was afraid of the people. And number two, he was afraid of losing his political position. He was afraid that Caesar would remove him. So out of expediency, he delivered an innocent man. Notice John 19, verse 12. From then on, Pilate sought to release him. But the Jews cried out, saying, "If you let this man go, you are not Caesar's friend. Whoever makes himself a king speaks what? Speaks against Caesar." So what are they saying? They're saying, listen, this man said that he is a king, and if you don't do something about it, we're going to tell Caesar, and Caesar is going to remove you from your post. So it was because of fear of losing his political position that he delivered an innocent man. But it was also because the religious leaders pressured the people to ask for the blood of Jesus, and he was afraid of an insurrection and a tumult among the people. Notice Matthew 27 verse 20. Folks, the dangerous figures in this are not the common ordinary church members. The dangerous people here are the religious leaders.